Berlin. And all the people of the internets, we're almost ready for picks and bans here in game number 2 between Splyce and the Unicorns of Love. And if it is anything like the last game, we're in for a bumpy ride.
We certainly are. Hopefully moving into game 2, there are fewer barren misplays, I think is fair enough to say.
One way to categorize it. 2 steals for the Unicorns in game 1.
But I'd really like to echo something that I think Deficio said really well, which is very much that what we'd like to see more from teams is just simplify things, right? If the Unicorns like to fight, just pick a team fight comp, right? You know, like they did pretty well in terms of getting an early lead, but now I think they just need to go for something simple and fight because it's something that they're very good at.
Well, we will find out if that's indeed what they go for this time. It is so hard to predict the Unicorns pick and ban phase, but in game number 2, they started on the blue side and they open it up with the Jace ban. And there's the Rengar from Splyce.
So I think we should focus more on the blue side bans. And I think that so far we've seen a lot of prioritization on Zyra and Malzahar bans. Now, I wonder whether or not Unicorns are interested in banning away those champions, simply because they have a lot of answers. In particular, Lulu, we know that Hylissang likes to play it. He's also played things like the Tahm Kench. He's played the Malzahar himself. He's not averse to picking these interesting supports as an answer to some of these high-value supports that in Zyra and Malzahar we've seen banned away from a lot of other teams.
Well, we may see something a little bit different coming out this time. The Syndra's banned away, the Blanc, those are all the same that we expect so far. For Unicorns, if we are focusing on Hylissang, what would you like to see him craft if they do go back to those basics and pick a team fighting comp?
For Hylissang, well, I think a Tahm Kench would suit him perfectly. It very much depends on what his matchup is, but I think he has a lot of options. It's very dependent on what Splyce decide to do. But it looks like right now their priority may very well be an aggressive support. Maybe the Zyra or the Malz could be something that they look to pick up early on in the rotation.
Yeah, they're both left up and available. If Splyce doesn't ban either, could end up being a trade. The Camille was banned away at the last, and so the Ivern left open instead of Warwick this time. That's what they first pick on the side of Unicorns.
The great thing about Ivern is that he actually does very well into champions like Rek'Sai, in particular because they can't really punish his early game. So if you do want to punish an early game Ivern, you have to go for something aggressive in the jungle, whether that be an Elise or perhaps the Lee Sin.
Well, that's definitely Splyce's game plan. We'll see if Trashy can have a bigger early game impact than he did the last time around. He still was able to pick up a lot of kills on that Kha'Zix, but with the band away from him, he goes down to the lead. And the Varus is locked in, of course, for Kabi. Unicorns of Love, the ball is back in their court for their final 2 picks of this first pick phase.
Jhin likely to be a priority, something that we saw from Splyce in game 1, and with the changes to lethality, he does seem to be rising in terms of the pecking order. You could also look to get your, interesting, so the Rise prioritization instead this time. Okay. Something that the Unicorns have showed a lot of. The advantage now that Splyce have is they can actually pinch away the Jhin. They can pinch away the Ashe if they want to, but we do know that the Unicorns are not averse to picking up the Caitlyn.
Yeah, so Unicorn's not too worried about their AD carry choices, have locked in the Shen alongside of that Rise. So that prompts Splyce to take the Zyra for Mickey X, and we're into the second phase of bans right now. Splyce, they have the first. Are they going to pinch the AD carry pool? Is it worth it against the Unicorns?
You could also pinch the support pool. You could take away the Misfortune away, given that it is very strong into the Zyra. Malz versus Zyra isn't that bad. Like, Zyra can handle it fine. Plants do very good.
You can also take Lulu once again.
Yeah, you could also take the Lulu into that as well. So I think that Splyce have a lot of options really in terms of what they want to take away, but Unicorns are going to focus on making sure that Chachi has a good Shen matchup.
All right, so Splyce have opted to take away those 2 top-tier AD carries, which means Samix should fall back on the Caitlyn unless he's got one more trick up his sleeve. One more ban now for Unicorns, and they get rid of the Gangplank once again, so they've been focusing on Wonder.
Very similar to what we saw in game 1, where they banned away both the Gangplank and the Jace. Which means that now Splyce don't really have aggressive. I wouldn't be surprised if Splyce went for perhaps a Poppy. I think Poppy would be very good right here, especially with the changes to Courage of the Colossus. You could also still run Maokai. Yes, he was nerfed, quote-unquote, in terms of the Courage of the Colossus, but he's still a very powerful team fighter. Yeah. And in these 5 versus 5 fights, you still get a good shield from the Courage of the Colossus.
So that's what Splyce is opting for right now, and the ball's back in the Unicorns' court once again. There's the Caitlyn. Expect to see it, and it is going to be locked in. Now, the last question, who's the support? Hylissang is going to take the Bard.
Now, this is something that he has done in the past. You can use the plants to get a bit of aggression, and actually at level 1, Bard has a big advantage over the Zyra because you can't take full advantage of her aggressive playstyle given that she has no control over the plants. So definitely, I mean, in terms of the early push, you definitely have an advantage if you're Unicorns as well with the Caitlyn.
All right, so Senkunks actually has opted to take the Victor as the last pick. It's something that's been typically a very safe thing, but we've seen it a little bit less and less in European LCS so far. It's actually something that he hadn't played in any of his games up until this point for the spring split, but he's locked it in now, so it seems like a fairly safe meta comp from Splyce this time.
Now, Victor is actually a champion that's been picked up a lot over in North America, given that he is very safe, as you mentioned. He had a lot of changes, and one of the risks that you have with a Victor is you can't put him in the side lane. But hey, fun fact, Unicorns don't like going in the side lane. They like grouping up, they like team fighting. Except that's Splyce. What am I talking about? So Splyce, they've actually drafted themselves a really good team fight composition. They have the Victor.
You got turned
he
around
does
from
fine.
last game,
I did, yeah. I got a little bit topsy-turvy, but nevertheless, strong team fight composition coming out from Splyce. The Unicorns of Love, again, actually have a pretty promising 1-3-1. They have good peel onto the Caitlyn. They have a lot of pick potential, but I'm a little bit worried about their damage output once again, because they have two big tanks, and they actually have only two major damage dealers in the Ryze and the Caitlyn. So if you force one of them out of the fight, you may very well be lacking.
They do have one more damage dealer, Daisy.
That is very true. You do have a giant rock smashing you in the face.
So, I mean, maybe we'll see if that comes to bear for Unicorns. It is a special for Xerxes. Now, if you think the Unicorns of Love can fire back after what was one of the most ridiculous games we've had so far in the European LCS Spring Split, hop on Twitter, go to @LOL Esports, and tweet out UOL win, or Splyce are going to lock it up. Hashtag SPY win. We're about to find out as we load up onto Summoner's Rift for the second time today.
So, the Unicorns, backed up against the wall right now. 0-1 in this series, yet to lose a best of 3 in the LCS so far. And this could very well be their first loss on the board. It would be a big deal for Splyce in terms of the standings of Group B.
Absolutely. I mean, if you can take out the team that's been beating everybody else, that does a lot for you, especially after the really rough opening performance we saw them play against H2K. Now, Splyce are definitely looking a little bit better. There's still a lot of mistakes, but Unicorns, they made the bigger ones last time around. Let's see if these teams are going to clean up their play a little bit more. Less craziness in the compositions.
Now, the great thing about Splyce's composition is that they do have very powerful team fighting. They have a lot of damage, especially in the bottom half of their map. Zyra is well known for being a bit of a team fight terror with the amount of utility that she provides. But when you're going up against Ivern, you cannot underestimate the amount of utility that he brings come the mid and late game, especially once he's completed that Redemption and he's completed the Locket of the Iron Solari. Now, Redemption did have a bit of a nerf, but once you stack it with the Athena's Unholy Grail, the heals and shields that you provide are absolutely phenomenal. So I want to see from Trashy early aggression. I want to see him invading. I want to see him try and punish the weak clear that Xerxes has during the very early stages of play.
Well, he's got the champions in his favor to do it. Trashy, in the last game, really had a rough start as he got stopped and caught by Xerxes, but Mickey is taking some poke to start things off in this bottom lane. Samix, always comfortable on this Caitlyn when the 80 carry pool does get shortened. See what he's able to make do against Kabi and Mickey in this game number 2.
He is very comfortable on the champion, something that we've only really been seeing from Samix in Europe. The fact that he's willing to sacrifice these other 80 carries so that he can play it shows that he pretty much values, he's willing to take that sacrifice for the other team, enabling them to get their priority picks like the Shen and the Ryze. And he has had good performances on it so far. It's not like he, especially I seem to remember him going up against the Rengar and the great composition they built around him with the Ivern and the Vitality. They tried to dive on top of him and they just couldn't do anything about it. So I like the fact that he's definitely shown great promise on it. But I don't know how strong it will be against the changes in builds that we've seen now on 80 carries. With the increase in lethality, you can see Kabi going for the early longsword that he can get that very first buy of the Serrated Dirk. But hang on a second, look at this early aggression from Trashy.
There we go, he heads up mid. Exile is caught a little bit further out and his escape route is cut off. He's going to flash and Trashy is going to be able to follow him. But Xerxes is there. They've turned back around. Trashy all of a sudden is taken low and he has no flash available. The aggression is punished and it's first blood to the Ivern and some change. Senkunks is going to flash. Double kill to Xerxes.
We wanted to see early aggression from Trashy and he gets it, but it is Unicorns of Love that get the early game lead once again. Beautiful start for the Unicorns, but perhaps not the best thing that your Ivern has the double kill.
I mean, Xerxes got to be thinking, yeehaw, man, after that start. It looked so bad for Exile, and he holds his flash until just then. Too late.
Exile actually holds it for long enough to buy time for Cersei to actually come and give him the shield. Tragedy actually gets creep blocked, which slows him down enough for Exile to get another rotation of spells off. And then Cersei gets the red buff, uses his auto attack to clean things up. Double kill, and you can see the look of his face. We talked about this early aggression from Trashy. This is exactly what he needed to do. He needed to try and start snowballing these lanes early if he could, get the momentum going. And things are just awfully gone wrong.
He's snowballing the enemy jungler. So it could be another rough game for Trashy, but he was able to pick up the pieces. We'll see what he does going forward as he hangs around towards the bottom side here. Taking out the Scuttle Crab to clear some vision. It's a Cloud Drake this time around, not as valuable. He looks like he might be heading back towards mid.
But look at the differential between the junglers now, because Trashy only level 3, Cersei level 4.
He's got cooldown boots already.
He's working, like, he's about 75% of the way to level 5. So he had a great first buy. He's already gotten himself a fantastic early lead. And honestly, like, this is exactly the situation that Unicorns were in last time. They had this great early start. They have the potential, like, they have pushing lanes in mids. They fall a little bit behind in top, and now they're going for a gank bot.
Yep, okay, flashing forward. Hylissang nails the meat slap. Akabi's going to flash out of that one. Xerxes, and then he pushed back, but Hylissang, oh! That was too close for comfort. He's going to make his way out, but in a 3v2, it ends up being Unicorns who are pushed back. Trashy's up towards top side here. Pinging, but Chachi's already backing away. Shouldn't be able to get much off that. Does avoid the vision on the ward, and he heads toward into the jungle.
So now Trashy just trying to gain control over the top side, given that Ivan has been spotted in the bottom. Will enable him to get a bit of vision, but you're now starting to see mid lane Exile.
Uh-oh, Senkooks, he's got no flash, he's got no ghost. Exile keeps pushing forward, but he just doesn't have the damage enough yet to finish the job. Senkooks is forced back under tower, and the gold, or rather the CS, might widen just a little bit more.
Look at the top lane, though. Both junglers posturing around that area. Trashy, I don't think he's actually been spotted out. There was no ping towards him. But it looks like nothing too exciting is going to happen in the top lane. Just another Maokai versus Shen. But in terms of, like, the early game, this is a big deal for the Unicorns because you want to have your Ryze go off onto a side lane. Remember that one of the big reasons as to why Victor fell off in the meta is that you cannot put him on a side lane. He really doesn't do very well because it's very difficult for him to join in on these fights. And Unicorns of Love, with that very great early game lead in game 1, they weren't able to do much with it. And traditionally, they aren't the team that gets the early game lead. Usually, it's around the mid game where they have this explosive gold impact, where they really start to swing things in their favor. And stealing away a Baron last game definitely helped, but now they're off to another great start. Let's see what they can do with it.
Yep. I feel like that last game definitely skewed the average for the Unicorns, but they are off to a good start, as you said. 1,000 gold advantage, most of that sitting in the pocket of Xerxes. Chachi is trying to hold out with 3 here up top side and a 4th waiting in the wings. We saw this last game from Splyce, so this time they get less for it. And there's free pressure for Samix and Hylissang on bottom.
It's extremely important for Splyce to make this play as well, because already we've seen the early ganks come out from Cersei. Kobe doesn't have his flash, so they need to respond in some way to try and get some tab. But Unicorns, they're actually shifting their priority up from what Splyce did in game 1, because remember that Unicorns actually tried to match the 2 versus 2 in game 1, whereas this time, Unicorns realized they actually have a good push, and they should be able to get themselves this first tower goal.
Might have to wait for another wave of minions to come crashing in, but maybe not. So a couple more auto attacks and they do it. That's Tower First Blood. Unicorns are going to grow their gold lead, and they did it without really breaking a sweat.
Yes, they did. So Splyce, I mean, it's the right move from Splyce. And now Trashy needs to be careful.
Uh-oh, all of a sudden in comes Xerxes, and the Realm Warp's coming. Not even going to need it. He takes it anyways, and Xerxes finishes the job. Exile gets an assist, and in comes Daisy to cut off Wonder. He's gonna have to flash right out of there. Stopped up, Ruined Prison, they've got the damage. The tree is Bark, he's not got enough tankiness. He's going down, Exile picks him up while Daisy tanks the turret.
Unicorns are snowballing this early game. They are being so proactive with the lead that they have, and this is the big difference between game 1 and game 2. They are not just passively sitting by, they are looking for advantages wherever they can get them, and so far at a 3,000 gold lead at 8 minutes into the game is a great way to start.
Yeah, it's huge right now. Okay, so Samix comes up top to relieve Vizichachi, who was a little bit low on the health bar, but let's take a look at that catch again. Trashy did not know what hit him.
He wasn't expecting this rotation to come out from the Unicorns of Love. Their actual priority was get the collapse down onto Maokai. They were just lucky enough to find Trashy in the jungle. They get the kill down onto him, and then they still go for the play onto Wonder. He's not able to evacuate fast enough, and this chain CC is beautiful because you get the root from Ryze, you get the binding from Hylissang, and then you get the knock-up from Daisy to just add insult to injury.
Yeah.
So, really good setup.
There's a lot of CC on this Unicorn side now, definitely thinking on it, so it's really difficult as Splyce finds themselves caught out in the jungle, and that's exactly what happened. And also in the lane, Wonder just not tanky enough yet, still sitting just on a pair of basic boots and a few components of his items. Vizicachi hasn't had too much trouble. Counterpart for himself, moving down towards the bottom side, and Unicorns are doing the move up top for themselves. They're able to now push on pressure onto the turret. Splyce don't seem to have any answers.
Senkix takes a lot of damage.
Look, Chaos Storm's out. Excel's running away from it. Still, it's a flash available for Exile. Didn't need to use it. And now they're moving up top again. Trashy, he keeps coming, but like, he hasn't been able to have a huge early game impact, and his time seems to be running out.
But Exile is having a lot of early game impact, and this is very much what we saw in game 1, where he had the early snowball on Cat, but he wasn't really making very many map movements with the Warwick. This time, Exile is moving all over the map with the Ivan. He is providing the damage to the CC setup from Cersei. And I really like this map play from Exile. He's got a lot of pressure, given that he was doing a similar thing against Senkix in game 1, and now Senkix getting locked up.
There's the flash. Senkix had to burn that for the tempered fate of Hylissang. So Unicorns will be happy with that trade.
And now with Senkix with no flash, he has to play so much more conservatively, and he still has time. Game 1 performance was actually incredible from Senkix. He did not die a single time on Corki, 3-0 and 20, and he was able to have a lot of impact as the game progressed.
Yeah, Senkix was actually making some serious moves in that game. This time around, he's been penned up a little bit in lane up against this Ryze, and it kind of all stemmed from Trashy trying to snowball him and ended up getting caught himself. Unicorns on the march up top, continuing to push things in. And let's definitely take a look closer at Senkix, because he was somebody that we, I think, criticized in the early parts of this split, but he really had a turnaround performance in this first game.
He certainly did. His positioning was good. He had a lot of mini outplays in game 1 too. His use of the exhaust was fantastic, especially onto that Katarina. And the fact that he was always willing to target focus the right person made a lot of difference. You can see his damage per minute was actually well above the average Corki's. And it's nice to see Senkix have that good performance.
Something we haven't expected from him too much, as he played a lot more of a utility role in the summer split, and even in the beginning of this split. Senkix as the carry was something that Splyce were known for when they first came into the LCS. Long tradition of Danish mid laners coming in doing some work, but at 11.5 minutes into this game, it is Unicorns that still have this lead, still pushing, and still providing pressure.
So now if you are the Unicorns, your priority is going to be on that top tier 1 turret. Notice that every time Exile returns to mid lane, he's just pushing, 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 and then he's moving with Cersei to take control over the top half of the jungle, as you see it all in and mid.
Oh boy, Chaos Storm's down. Exile, he's the one who has to flash this time around. Oops. He's out, but yeah, he definitely got a bit of an oopsie there.
That was actually really good play from Senkix, just dropping his gravity field as Exile was starting his combo, and he wasn't properly micromanaging his steps to start walking out of the pit, which meant that Senkix could get a lot of channel time from his ultimate, and that's where all the damage comes from. So Exile was just forced to flash because he was aware that the cooldown from Q of Victor was going back up, which would have been enough to get the kill.
Yep. So now it's the Ward Wars. Hylissang pushing it back. The plants are there as well. He actually gets caught up by the roots. Oh my goodness, Kabi and Trashy come out of the woodwork and clean him up.
Big misplay from Hylissang. While we have definitely given him a lot of praise in the past for his aggressive thresh hooks, his use of picks, always looking for plays, it's a double-edged sword where every time you might be a little bit too aggressive, you end up getting caught out of position.
Yeah, that time, definitely one of those, so Hylissang's going to have to think twice the next time he goes in and tries to push the ward out. Splyce, knowing this, taking full advantage of it to get themselves their first kill of the game. Gives Trashy a bit of gold. Still not picked up those boots, by the way. It's the first item that Xerxes had gotten. He's definitely had the jump on him in this game.
Now, if you are Trashy, you could look to actually set up a play in mid, given that there is no flash for Exile. If you can put the Rise behind, even a little bit, it's going to do a lot for the Victor, who's going to scale nicely into these mid-game team fights. And that really is where Splyce's team composition will start to shine, because one thing that we have noticed is that the Unicorns of Love do just group up and they try to force fights. They have a fantastic 1-3-1 composition, and with a Rise this strong and a Shen with his global ultimate, you're actually in a really good position, especially when you have Ivan to provide great peel for the Caitlyn in the event that Splyce try to engage on top of it in the mid lane. So, come the mid-game, the 20 to 25 minute mark, Splyce could look to force a fight, and if Unicorns don't properly play their composition, that is the window for Splyce to come back into the game.
As it stands, they've not really given up too much more than some damage up on the top tower. It's really been Unicorns trying to force the issue, been having a lot of people hovering around here, but nobody's really pulling the trigger, and Splyce, you know, they're playing it out a little bit safe, kind of going back to their basics where they definitely wait a little bit longer and see what they can get done. So that 20-25 minute mark, as you mentioned, is going to be super important for them, especially if the game stays as it is. We'll see what happens as Xerxes is going to be spotted by Trashy. Unicorns throwing some weight around, trying to push out the wave, but Senkux and Trashy can stop that from happening.
And look at the aggressive movement from Unicorns of Love. Their focus is still that top tier 1. Exile is constantly pushing out the mid lane, and then he's moving with Xerxes into the top half of the jungle to just reclaim some vision. And this is enabling Samex to hit onto the tower, because Kobe and Mickey have to be aware of the potential dive, especially when you have a Shen on the team. So
yeah, they'll be able to do it next minion wave.
Yeah. Clean play from the Unicorn so far, and this is going to open the map a lot more. So now you can move Exile to the top lane, you can move Caitlyn and Bard to the mid, and then you can start to work on that final tier 1 tower.
So no problem, the Unicorns are able to knock themselves down number 2. And we should start to see a little shift to the mid. Exile might be making his way elsewhere right now. Still waiting for some time, still stacking up with the tier, with the Rod of Ages. Has a red buff for himself as well. But Kabi and Mickey are here, so 2-on-1, he's not going to be able to push him back unless he gets a little help from Xerxes. He's a little preoccupied down in his own jungle right now.
So one thing that I actually like to see, what I would like to see from Unicorns, is a potential force play in the mid lane. Because you have a Hylissang Bard ultimate, you have a Shen ultimate, you have a lot of utility from the Ivern. It's actually very easy for you to dive, especially if someone like Victor is being forced into a side lane. So they could look to make a very aggressive play mid and abuse the fact that they are so far ahead in this early game. 3,000 gold, some completed items, the Rod of Ages on top of Rise. Just use the Bard ultimate either on the tower or the champions and just set up a dive. Be aggressive. That's what I want to see from the Unicorns.
So if that happens, how does Splyce stop it from basically resulting in a tower and or a couple of kills?
Well, I mean, this is the thing, because you're being forced, if you're Splyce, to send the Victor off into a side lane to wave clear. You can see the Splyce are trying to respond right now by sending all 4 members mid, but this is just going to enable Exile to just keep pushing out bot, and he can slowly work his way onto that tier 2 turret.
And they find Trashy once again, but you can see Senkux has already moved back in to try and push them away with the Death Ray. But yeah, now they've all got to back away, and another minion wave or 2. Samus can just keep doing his thing. I mean, he plays this Caitlyn very well, just not getting within the range of anyone from Splyce. And, well, do we even need to mention it? The wet noodle fight continues up top.
This is just smart play from the Unicorns of Love. Look, you can see Bot is pushed up thanks to the Rise.
There we go.
Now they're going for the play.
All right, so they're onto the tower. They've caught Senkux for now, but all they really wanted was to grab that one Exile. The Chaos Storm is out. He's trying to run away from it. Should be able to do it. The Redemption keeps him healthy. They get away with that, so all 3 outer towers are knocked down. They might be heading for the Drake.
And this is exactly what we wanted to see from the Unicorns of Love. They get themselves the mid-tier 1 very cleanly, easily. They're going to get themselves the first rate, and now they can just keep doing this. You still have the 1-3-1 possibility. I think the best play for the Unicorns now is you send your Rise bot lane, you move your Caitlyn and Bard mid, you invest all of your vision into the bottom half of Splyce's jungle with Xerxes, and you have Shen sit top lane and just draw pressure. He has his ultimate to join fight should he need to, and honestly, you're just splitting up the composition of Splyce. We have already talked about their window back into this game is a good 20 to 25 minute team fight. And as long as Unicorns of Love deny that and eventually get to a point where they're so far ahead, Splyce can no longer counter them. That is how Unicorns finish up this game.
Well, Unicorns are putting the pieces exactly as you described them. Dual laners in the mid, Rise in the bottom. Let Xerxes just do his thing, to be honest. And Unicorns of Love, playing this one a lot safer, a lot more controlled. It is such a far cry from game number 1, where they did not hesitate to pull the trigger. They've controlled the action. They've kept the chaos in check.
Now, this isn't a 20-minute Baron, so this is nice. They have
18-minute Rift Herald.
They have a lot more control. Bot lane is pushing. Zenkix has to go deal with it. And this is typically how you want to be playing around a neutral objective. Not, hey, Baron's up. I think we should send all of our team there as a team building exercise. I'm sure it'll be great fun. And then all of your team ends up getting killed. Hey, but at least you did it together, as friends.
I suppose that's one way to look at it. But this is definitely a little bit safer, a little less risky. So Unicorns give Visit Chachi Glimpse of the Void, so he'll have an easier time pushing out. They've also sent Exile up top lane. And Wonder might not be able to deal with him too well.
This is absolutely fine. It's the same principle, except this time rather than playing around bot side, you're actually playing around Baron, which is going to be spawning in a minute. So if you have Ryze up top, you can invest all your vision into the top side. You have Xerxes hang around so that if a collapse comes down onto Ryze, then at least he's there to provide some assistance. There's also the risk of getting a dive, and you just maintain control as another battle comes out.
Yeah, they forced the flash away. Mickey's gone, but that's a good trade. That's one Unicorns are happy to take there. Looks like not the healthiest after all said and done, but he's going to be able to back in the obscurity of the brush. So far this game, it has been a much more quiet affair than we saw the last time around, but Unicorns, they have controlled this pace from very early on, with Xerxes securing first couple of kills when Trashy tried to move mid.
And it's nice to see so much more of a clean playstyle from the Unicorns of Love, given their Game 1 performance, which was very back and forth. They had a good team composition, but they didn't play to its win conditions. Splyce tried themselves to punish the mistakes of Unicorns, and then they ended up making a lot of mistakes themselves. Whereas this time, Unicorns of Love, they respond in kind by getting a good early game lead. Nice counter gank coming out from Xerxes. They've held it. They haven't taken too big of a gambles, but it was at this point in the game, last game, where things started to go a bit chaotic.
Well, we'll see what happens as the Realm Warp is taken, and Exile finding himself a little bit caught, flashing out of the Chain of the Corruption. Unicorns this time are able to disengage, but, Victor, cannot finish the job onto Exile. Zenkix was rushing as he popped the Ghost to try and close that distance a little bit. Splyce were sensing that they could snap the trap shut, but it didn't happen.
Nice play, honestly, from the Unicorns, using the Realm Warp to try and get a pick onto Mickey, who had already used his flash earlier. But he still had his ultimate to disengage, and when you're in that such a narrow choke point, it's very easy to just force your opponents away. And you ended up actually giving away your flash on the Ryze, which could be detrimental to him later on into the game. But given as to how far behind Trashy is now, it's going to be difficult for him to really have an impact. Because if you just compare the two junglers, you can see that their value is so much different at this point.
Yeah, you're not kidding at all. Xerxes had a flying start to this game, and he's definitely continuing to have a big impact for himself. Trashy has definitely had some struggles in this entire series, to be honest. Even though the Kazakhs definitely got up and running in the last game, it does seem like sometimes his woes with the slow start and attempting to compensate for that by making action have not really paid off for him. A little worrying for Splyce.
So now the Baron is a possible option for the Unicorns of Love, except this time, you don't necessarily start the Baron, you just use it as a bait, because you have a lot of pick potential, you have a lot of opportunities to catch people off guard, especially someone like Mickey. He's got no flash, he wants to try and get some vision down, and the Unicorns, all they have to do is move in, get wards down, and just play around the Baron and be like, oh, you can't see it, maybe we're starting it.
Let's see if they play it that safely. Unicorns never know when they might get a little more trigger happy, but not taking any chances. They continue to invest in all this vision. You can see it all up and down this river, a little bit into the Splyce side of the jungle. And with Exile just constantly pushing in, I mean, they're really dragging Splyce around the map and making them march to their own beat. Ultimate lands onto Mickey X, and they get the root collar, but in goes Trashy. He can't get the kick the direction he wanted. Wonder is TP'd in now, and so is Exile. They're going to follow him. He's got the Stand United on, and maybe now Unicorns can fight. Mickey's going low. He's going to go down. Samix finishes the job. Trashy and Wonder are isolated. Exile's tanking a lot of the damage here, but it doesn't even matter. Wonder trying to stay alive, and it's a pilt-over Peacemaker that doesn't finish it as Xerxes polishes the last kill. Kabi equalizes onto Samix. Senkux is going down. A big fight here, but Unicorns are the ones that took it. 2 for 4.
And this is the big difference between Ivan and Lee Sin at this point in the game. If you're not able to snowball the early game, the Lee Sin just gradually falls off, and it is the utility powerhouse of Ivan that is able to come out on top. Off the back of that massive teamfight win, they can just transition over to the Baron and pick this up nice and safe.
And this is a hell of a lot safer than we saw last couple times around. Kabi sends a piercing arrow, but it's just gonna tickle as he's actually assisting Unicorns on this one. That Baron's going down 23 minutes into this game. We talked about the desperation fight that they could have had, but Splyce were the ones that got caught.
Clean collapse from the Unicorns, much cleaner game overall. But just look at how the setup happens. They try to go for another pick onto Mickey. The play itself is fine. Samix ends up getting rooted up, and the problem is the ultimate here from Mickey forces the disengage again from the choke point. Now, Splyce feel they can force a 5 versus 5. They actually catch Exile out of position, but here you go. The redemption. The shields from Cersei, and Exile is still fine thanks to his own shield and heals. This is what enables them to just focus down Mickey. They can then turn their attention onto Wonder, and Trashy's impact in this fight was little to none. And it is just the difference between not only the early start, but the mid-game value that Cersei provides in these fights.
And Senkus was doing everything he could, but everything he did was absorbed by Exile for such a long time. He managed to get a couple down, but at the end of the day, it was Unicorns that just waltzed away with the big prize. So now with the Baron buff, they're looking to push towards mid. Splyce are looking to set up a flank. Can they get it? Senkuk's Trashy, they've caught him. Hylissang is melting right now, and in goes Wonder. Mickey is the one who finishes him off. Unicorns wander into the trap. There's a teleport coming, however, from Visit Chachi. Can they turn this? It's still 3-on-5, so would not be wise to do so. Exile is rushing to get to the rest of the team, but even so, they'd have a numbers disadvantage. Chains of Corruption are on. Exile is caught right in the middle of nowhere, and he's taken down by Kabi. Unicorns turn back around and scurry to the safety of their towers.
Splyce are able to force a pick onto the Unicorns of Love. They then get the kill down onto Exile, and now they're in a position to take down this tier 1, but UOL want to stop him.
They do. The Brushmaker, they're keeping him hidden right now. Chachi taking up everything. Trashy is going way too low. The Redemption comes in to keep them healthy, and Unicorns are pushing back all 5 members of Splyce. Chachi wants to finish somebody, but he might go down himself. It's Kabi that takes the kill. Once again, Unicorns, they pull the trigger just a little too hard, and they lose Visit Chachi, but they stop the turret from going down.
Not quite enough damage from the side of Unicorn,
not done.
But the fight's not over.
Okay, they catch Senkux, they keep the damage going, and Samix finishes him off. That's a lot of damage for a Caitlyn now on 2.5 items.
No flash on the Senkux means that it's very easy to set up the trap line. Hylissang adds a bit of his own damage, but look at this. This is a big misplay from the Unicorns because they're trying to get deep vision when they actually have no control over the bottom lane. Exile hasn't been given an opportunity to push up. Shen is still on the other side of the map. His ulti isn't off cooldown, and it was just a 3-man unit overstepping their boundaries. They think that they're in a safe position to get that vision, and Splyce end up punishing.
We talked about Unicorns having such a safe game, but they take a lot of unnecessary risks that really punishes them here, and they do it again even after losing some members. Chachi didn't need to be this deep. They almost got Wonder, admittedly.
Remember what we talked about? All you need is one big mid-game fight for Splyce to find your avenue back into the game. They have a very powerful team fight composition, and honestly, the Varus is going to be so much stronger than the Caitlyn at this point in the game that UOL have to respect the damage. This is going to completely mitigate the whole Baron power that the Unicorns have picked up for themselves, and Splyce are going to buy a bit more time and scale up.
This is true. However, Unicorns still have a pretty hefty gold lead here. They'll be able to pick themselves up another dragon. Hasn't been an important dragon fest this game as it was last time around with Infernals and Mountains abounding. But Unicorns still have a little bit of extra regen out of combat now with the Ocean secured. 27 minutes on the clock now, holding on to that 5,500 gold advantage. But Splyce have shown that they definitely have some teeth in this game number 2.
And look, Unicorns of Love falling back into Havoc, grouping up as 4 members mid. To be fair, Exile perhaps a little bit afraid of overextending in the bottom lane. Yeah. But now they've pushed it. Now you set up the 1-3-1 again. We've talked a lot about it this game. It's the clear win condition for the Unicorns of Love. Ryze is incredibly strong. If you force Senkux to a side lane, it is so difficult for the Victor because he has to play so far back. He doesn't have those innate escapes. He doesn't have ways to join the fight. So Splyce, they're just trying to respond by grouping up as 5 and look to try and contest this mid-tier 1.
Unicorns have still been able to push them back over and over again. But as you said, they're opting into some habits, dare we say bad habits, of trying to send too many members mid, but there's a lot of vision invested in this jungle too. Splyce are going to be spotted out if they try to go in for another collapse, and the game might be up for these guys as they continue to try and stop the push from the Unicorns of Love.
Again, though, remember that the Unicorns have actually a really good way to force fights because they have the Bard ultimate. You have a flank from Shen and Ryze. You have so many options to like dive this mid tower that really, if you're the Unicorns, what you do is you push in bot, you wait until you see Senkux appear in the bottom lane, and then you just force a play mid. Like, it's so easy with a Shen, with an Ivan, with the Bard, with the Ryze, like everything. It is really easy for them to force this play. We saw them do it earlier on with the mid tier 1. Remember, that is the sort of play that you want because the objectives are your focus, not necessarily the kills.
Look where they're moving.
Right now, they're not doing it.
Yep, okay, all right. And they catch Mickey. Senkux is caught around the side as well, but he's able to run it out here. Mickey himself is going to go incredibly low, but the ace in the hole tanked up by Trashy. Unicorns burn a couple of cooldowns on that, and they start heading towards the mid, see if they can knock this turret down before the rest of Splyce have answered. Unfortunately, not quite there just yet.
So they force Senkux back, but they don't have the minion race to properly set up the siege. So even though they're able to get a summoner spell away from Senkux, at the moment they're not going to be able to get any objectives.
No, still putting some damage onto this bottom turret. A little less than half its health as Senkux is able to clear away the last of the minions from Exile. There's a Baron in a minute though, and Unicorns should have their eyes on this one, even though the vision is all bot side right now.
Yeah, their priority though is picking up these neutral objectives in the mid lane. That tower is going to be the focus.
Daisy tanking everything. They can't finish it though. Wonder is flanking here. Oh boy. He's going in. See, Xerxes preemptively flashes. Wonder's going to follow him in. There's the change. Splyce are looking for the big fight, and they get the big shutdown on Xerxes. Exile just a skosh too late. The Unicorns are scattering.
So Splyce successfully force a fight in the mid. The Unicorns of Love couldn't get themselves the objective, and they're actually going to lose themselves one in the first place as well. And bear in mind that Baron is going to be spawning in 15 seconds. Splyce can use this as an opportunity to gain some vision control in that area, reclaim control around their jungle. The Unicorns of Love are struggling to know what to do right now. They wasted all their ultimates trying to get that pick onto Mickey, which honestly didn't result in anything. And they're the ones that end up coming out with the deficit.
And they had all the vision in that jungle to try and make it happen, but Splyce, as you said, they just need to be able to fight a little bit better. Start taking it. The gold is going to lean less and less the way this game is going, especially. So Wonder with that flank really sets it up big. And I mean, how important is it to grab the shutdown gold on Xerxes anyways? Let's take a look at it again.
So you can see Ryze is in the bottom lane. Shen is in the top lane. The thing about this whole play is that the actual premise behind what Unicorns of Love is doing is fine. The fact is if that Maokai TP is going to come in, you have to somehow punish it. And instead, Unicorns tried to respond by joining the fight rather than trying to go for that objective. XL tried to rotate down rather than just take the tower bot, and the same went for Chachi. So I feel like that their prioritization should have just been trading objective for the kill.
Speaking of objectives, Baron's been started right now. They're going to lock up Daisy for just a second, but Splyce, they're getting cold feet right now. Kabi's going to get caught by the Tempered Fate. Now Trashy Wonder taking the front lane. They turned onto Exile, but guess what? He's got Stand United on him, and the shield is strong. Going a little bit low, Baron helping out. Trashy can't get involved here as Wonder is getting slowly shipped down to 0. He does the damage, but Exile is able to finish him off there. And now Unicorns clearing the vision in the Baron pits. The fight's not over yet. Senkux still around the side. Ace in the hole is going to deter him from any further aggression.
So this time, Splyce realized, okay, we cannot allow them to set up the 1-3-1. Let's start the Baron and try and force the fight. The problem is that the Unicorns of Love just played it so well. They bought time using Daisy. The ultimate from Chachi did not come in immediately. Unicorns were just throwing out poke, and they were just allowing Splyce to take a lot of damage from the Baron initially. And once Splyce had taken all that damage, that is when the Unicorns of Love decided to strike, and now they're going to go for the Baron themselves. Yeah,
Hylissang forward positioning, trying to stop Kabi and Trashy from making it happen. It's still far from safe as Hylissang takes a lot of damage. Realm Warp coming in. Oh, Samix just gets shredded. Oh, that'll stop your Baron right there. Okay, the fight's still going. Trashy and Exile duking it out with Kabi. Meanwhile, Chachi in the back is going to be able to shut him down. Trashy's safeguarded over to Senkux, but Mickey X is going to be caught and left for dead. Hylissang making himself look tasty. Senkux caught between the rest of the Unicorns now. He sends a Death Laser, and he's not going to be able to get the kill. Chachi gets it. onto him. It is 3 for 1 Unicorns.
Unicorns using their gold advantage now to really solidify this win. Samox definitely getting caught out of position, but still, given how strong Exile is, honestly how strong Chachi is, it is so difficult for Splyce to turn these fights around. But Trashy is still alive. Will Unicorns go for the 50-50 smite?
Looks like they're starting it right now. They don't have Samox available, but they turn their attention right to Wonder, who is just getting wrecked between all these members of Unicorns, and Daisy gets pulled over to Trashy. Exile taking that kill. Trashy knows he can't escape. It's a golden Daisy, and Trashy gets the kick, gets taunted, and gets taken down. A double kill for Rise.
And that is how you play around a Baron. You do not prioritize the objective, you prioritize not losing it. If it is Trashy that is still alive, if it is Maokai that can ruin the fight, then you turn your attention onto them and get the Baron later.
Securing it this time, Mickey X steps forward to try and secure some vision, but he gets himself caught running and going down to 0. They just need one more hit, and it's Chachi. That secures it.
Multiple kills for the Unicorns of Love. Baron has been secured, but let's have a look at how all of this starts off. Samox actually sitting in the bush thinking he's fine, but then the plant is actually what spots him out, and Kobe's able to get himself the pick. But now you see the power of Shen once he's level 17 against a level 14 AD carry. Exile did help out just a little bit, but honestly, you're just seeing how much farther ahead Unicorns are at this point. And even though Splyce looked promising in a couple of team fights before, honestly, going for that earlier Baron fight is really what enabled Unicorns of Love to just do too much and be too far in the lead at this point.
Well, they clearly learned their lessons from the previous game. This is a much smarter Baron play, as you said, and immediately turning on to Wonder, taking him down. Hylissang dancing out of the range, and Trashy honestly really tried to get involved, but it just didn't matter, and then Xerxes stuck to him. And what a beautiful tempered fate, catching Trashy right on the edge.
With the jungler dead, they made it for a pretty easy Baron. But honestly, I'm just impressed with how much UOL fixed many of their issues in game 1. There were still a couple of problems in the sense that they did get caught out when they had the Baron. But now they're in a prime position. Wait for Exile to push it bottom lane. You've got Chachi shoving up top. You have the Baron empowered minions. And really, you're also seeing the big problems with this teamfight composition that Splyce drafted for themselves. They dropped it in the very early game. They experienced a massive deficit. They tried to force a few fights later on, and some of them worked out fairly well, but it wasn't big enough that they were able to reclaim any kind of gold lead. And now Unicorns of Love sitting at a 13k gold advantage in a prime position to close things out.
Yeah, they've definitely been able to start pushing their lead. A lot of damage dealt by this Shen this game, too. Vizichachi's definitely been big, and not only that, he's also providing quite a lot of protection. When you go back to it, you'll see that he's picked up the Knight's Vow. That did receive a little bit of a buff on this patch, and he is pushing Wonder back and back again. These wet noodles are starting to hurt, and he's able to take out this tower with the help of the Baron-empowered minions. Samox is fought, however. Oh, there's the Stand United. Can he stay alive? He flashes. And Trashy is the one who ends up getting caught. The switcheroo there. They knocked up 3 with Mickey X's ult, but he is out of there right now as Wonder is flashing back. When your front line's doing that, you know the game is lost. Senkux is melted through, and it's onto the inhibitor. Another double kill for Exile.
You know you're behind when you catch out the AD carry perfectly, and he can't even lose his shield. That is how much farther ahead you all are, and they're going to take us to a game 3.
Absolutely. Unicorns of Love, a lot of mistakes, a lot of craziness in game number 1, but they cleaned it up, and they clean house, and they forced game 3 against Splyce.
The Unicorns of Love coming out with much, much, much better play in game 2. Their early game was much more on point. They took advantage of the lead they had. They played around Baron better. And honestly, the only big criticism that I had for them was when they got the Baron and they made that mid-game play. Other than that, honestly, very clean play from the Unicorns. And this is much more what we expect from a rank 1 team in Group B.
Absolutely. So they drop one game, they pick it up, and they clean up so much here. This series has definitely gotten real interesting because it has been a night and day couple of games, but as it stands, our best of 3 is tied here between Splyce and the Unicorns. So let's check in with the analysts for a closer look at game number 2.
Thank you very much. Indeed, going to game 3, and we wanted to look at picks and bans. No curveballs or some of that Unicorns of Love special picks or unique picks. Very standard for them, but you guys think that Splyce didn't play the pick and ban correctly?
Well, I guess, a surprise in the first pick, Iron, but shouldn't really be a surprise for Splyce. We know how much Unicorns value that pick specifically. And like they ban out some of those other normal first picks like Jace, like Kha'Zix. They clearly think the Iron is just like the top priority. I just think the answer from Trashy was not correct.
Yeah, the Lee Sin is a risk in itself if you play a more aggressive composition. The main flaw I saw or wanted to talk about, rather, not necessarily a flaw, but a choice, is the Zyra. On third pick for Splyce. I feel if you just pick the Rumble there, you have a quality matchup in the Shen. You're not obliged to go the boring kind of Maokai versus Shen where you can't really match anything. If you play versus Shen with a pressure player like Wunder on the Rumble, you can do a lot more against that pick. And especially if you look at second phase, Splyce, they're looking to squeeze the 80 carries. So there's no point in picking Zyra unless you really want to squeeze supports, because there's plenty of support champs that will be open because he looks like he doesn't even play Zyra himself.
At least not a whole lot, and I agree. I think that was like a question mark, but overall, I think Splyce's composition could definitely have won the game. Like it obviously
it's all possible.
Yeah, it definitely comes down to like the in-game performance. Where game 1, Unicorns won the early game. Game 2, they did exactly the same.
Not just one, they absolutely slaughtered it. 3.5k ahead at 15 minutes, and it's quite interesting. You were bringing up how Trashy last week on the desk said, well, if Xerxes starts pulling out these picks like the Ivan versus me, I'll be able to shut it down. But somehow Xerxes did get that double kill, the double kill very early in the mid lane, and they popped off for UOL.
Yeah, exactly. Like we could see the strategy. Pick Lee Sin. Ivan knew exactly what could happen, like level 1 or 2 invade. So Xerxes put a ward on his own red buff when he started obviously on the other side, so he could spot a potential invade. Trashy then goes all in for mid lane, and that's where it starts going downhill for Splyce because he overextends for that one. He dies, then also Senkooks dies, and at that point, like you can almost take the comps and throw them out the window. You just gave 2 kills over like level 3. Even to an Iron, and that was enough for Xerxes to kind of take it and snowball. And I think this pick is just proven so valuable now for these guys. Yeah. And it's simply because it offers
just
so much
out on
team
red side,
fight.
right?
Also Shen.
Just ask for a ban.
Why do you ban Camille and this kind of stuff? Like,
give us another ban, Just get 1 extra ban on the red side. 4 ban.
We need to make red side stronger.
That's
more
it.
Bans.
But we are also looking at what happens next, because we gave away 2 free picks, which you can technically come back from. But the problem was that Splyce, they initiated this lane swap that they do so often against a Shen pick, which is right, where you rotate 2 people into the top lane. But they didn't really follow up on that too well later on.
Yeah, we are going to take a look at that right now.
But first, you got to look at Yamato.
We will look at Yamato, because why not?
Look at that handsome
We are going to take a look at that play right now.
There we go.
All right, Crepo, what were we saying before?
Yeah, so like this is standard. When Shen hits 6, you go top side with your 80 carry and support. But this is where Wunder should base, and we were both kind of perplexed here that Wunder, who was lacking teleport at the time, wasn't basing, and the bot lane tower was just lost immediately. But that wasn't even the biggest mistake here. Splyce, they add insult to injury. Yeah,
because now obviously Trashy's playing bottom side, despite that being the strong side of Unicorns of Love. So when he gets invaded, he's alone. There's no way out. It's a very easy invade for Unicorns, and suddenly also Wunder caught now behind enemy lines because they were overextending on this weak side. It felt like Splyce, I'm not sure if there's miscommunication on the teleport or something, but like if you want to make this play where you swap top in this situation, you have to either execute a dive onto the Shen, like force him off the turret.
Or needs to base.
Or you need to base instantly as the Maokai, walk down bot lane, try and match the wave clear, but then also be ready to step away.
And I think this goes back to the way Splyce approached their gaming as Unicorns. I didn't see the necessary aggression here. I felt like they just automatically assumed Unicorns will only teamfight us. Let's pick a teamfight comp and beat them at teamfights. That seems to be the rationale, but Victor is continuously pushed in early game. This Maokai was behind on the rotations. The bot lane had to reactively swap around to kind of match, to deal with not with the enemy bot lane, but more with the Shen pressure. So I think if you give the Unicorns this Shen Ivern comp and you make any sense of mistake, then it looks like you're just going to lose.
Yeah, because they can play it very well. Splyce did get into the game a little bit. They were able to pick off some members of the Unicorns at some phases.
It's almost like hilarious where we're saying, just don't call the game over yet, because at one point, Heliosang will go a little bit overzealous here.
We've seen it before.
And this can happen, right? Like, you can get picked off. Really beautiful turn they're doing about here on the Varus. Like, I really like this Varus ultimate onto Exile. But then what happens next for me is it just defines the Unicorns.
You mean the 3v5?
Yes, it's 3v5 right now.
We all go down together if we do.
Guys, can we fight? Yes.
Sure.
Let's go. Daisy's there. Technically, it's 4v5. They use the multis.
Look how the set of the brushes there for the Caitlyn with the headshots and Hurricane. That's beautiful, Mitch. You just don't understand the Unicorn strategy here.
You can keep your statistics. I prefer the Magic.
So it's interesting, at the beginning of the day, we said, well, they're bad, or their early game getting behind is bad for the Unicorns of Love, and the fact that they go in and go ham is good, and it seems like they cancel each other out because a 3.5k lead at 15 minutes does allow you to make... it gives you a buffer. It gives you a buffer, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it also allows you to win fights against like pure team fighting comps because you obviously tend to have like maybe a full item above them, maybe half an item above them, some XP advantage. I think Unicorns, they managed to split up and play 1-3-1, which is what we wanted to see with Rise and Shen. They pushed it in. A few too many team fights happened, which was why Splyce had a small chance to get back in the game. But when you do this well early on, then you deserve to win. So like really good early game from the Unicorns of Love, and that's why we're going to like a third game now.
We are going to a third game, and now you really get to give your predictions. Who is going to win the series?
I think it'll grossly depend on draft. I don't want to see a Splyce that is this passive. I want to see more priority on the Rumble if they know they're going to end up playing against Shen, depending on the side selection. It matters also a lot. I just think we need more proactivity from Splyce if you give this safe of a comp versus Unicorns. And then still, Splyce should technically be favored in my opinion.
They'll be on blue, by the way.
Splyce on blue, yes. I think that's a huge advantage. I think they can ban Ivan and even Shen now, which takes away very key picks for Unicorns.
Ivan, Shen, Rise, maybe even.
Potentially even Rise, yeah, which will give a very big advantage over to Splyce. And if they execute properly, they should then win the game. However, I think the Unicorns have shown very good early games, and Splyce have shown very poor early games. So I think it's actually a super even game. I'm going to say Unicorns will take this one.
All right, there we go.
50-50.
Yeah,
random guess.
Close.
And if anything, a very interesting series. And up next, it is Game 3, our tiebreaker between UOL and Splyce. Who will emerge victorious? We will find out. Stay tuned.
They've turned back around. Trashy all of a sudden is taking low, and he has no flash available. The aggression is punished, and it's first blood of the Ivern, and some change. Senkux is going to flash. Double kill! Polishes the last kill. Kabi equalizes onto Samix. Senkux is going down. A big fight here, but Unicorns are the ones that took it. 2 for 4.
Fight's not over.
Okay, they catch Senkux, they keep the damage going, and Samix finishes him off, saying, making himself look tasty. Senkux caught between the rest of the Unicorns now. He sends a Death Laser, and he's not going to be able to get the kill. Shachi gets it. They knocked up 3 with Mickey X's ult, but he is out of there right now as Wonder is flashing back. When your front line's doing that, you know the game is lost.